Hi, I'm Linda Bamber Olson. I'm the creator of the WaveWatch, and I have just gotten so enthusiastic about frequencies that I just can't help sharing the information with you. You see, there's a frequency for that. That's my favorite phrase. I've been using that statement for a long time, and my daughter-in-law actually was the one who said, "You need to be using that as your main idea and your title." And that really is true. That's what I want you to learn and take away from some information that I give you is there's a frequency for that. Everything has a frequency. Like I've mentioned before, there's a law of vibration, and it states that everything in the universe is in a constant state of movement. And the only difference between one object and another is the rate that it vibrates. So they've been able to measure anything. I could go on and on and on about the measurements that we have. There are measurements for rocks and for stones and for trees and plants and the birds. So it is very unique, but we don't think about the measurements that they also have for different self-care concerns. They have frequencies for our thyroid and our liver, every organ system, and so many of the quote unquote diseases that are labeled today. We don't even think about that. So we do not know that we could be harnessing these frequencies and using them for the betterment in a really easy way. So I think most of us know that the biggest rock of all, our planet, Earth, has its own vibe, and it's called the Schumann resonance, and it vibrates at 7.3 up to maybe 36 hertz. They do know from measurements that they take all the time that the Earth is changing vibration constantly. So there have been a lot of spikes recorded because of all the lightning strikes, changes in the atmosphere, and the list goes on and on of different things that can change the vibration of the Earth. So by the same token, we're standing on the Earth. So doesn't it make sense that if the Earth changes vibrations, that our body can change vibrations too? And many things can affect our body just like the Earth. So we know that we can walk on a beach and it really calms us down. We know about so many different things that we can absorb, whether it's our nutrients, our food, the list goes on and on. We can even hold hands with somebody. How easy is that? And we can absorb their vibrations. But we're not using these ideas. We are not harnessing them to help improve our own health when it's just literally a little sound and a little vibration away. There are a lot of skeptics out there when it comes to sound vibrations, but we shouldn't be. We should be looking for the information behind it. So one of those is from Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, who has basically told us through his book, The Sounds of Healing, that you can look at disease as a form of disharmony, and really there's no organ system in the body that's not affected by sound and music and vibration. So he was an oncologist at the director of oncology, and learned a lot of things and used sounds in his practice. It doesn't get any better and more profound than that. You know, really what he had in his office, Dr. Mitchell Gaynor, was a lot of sound healing instruments and a lot of other tools, obviously, but he had studied and knew about all of the ancient techniques and ideas that ancient cultures have used with their healing instruments. They had discovered sound, obviously, thousands of years before, and were using it in several different ways. And again, we tend to think through that and think, oh, we're so much smarter, we know so much more. But really, we have lost the simplest thing that there is to do, and that's for our bodies to be absorbing frequencies that change us and can change us for so many different ideas and improve our health. We just need to learn that there's a frequency for that. There's a frequency for everything. So even the Egyptians knew that, and I really love this. They thought that a simple sound, just a sound, one sound, could reorganize the body structure, and that sounds were harmonious and they could activate the body and create healing. So we look at all of those ancient tombs, which they have really not found any bodies in, and some of the research that's been done. And they're now kind of focusing their research a little bit more on the sounds that those buildings make. So if you haven't seen some of this information, look it up. It's out there. tuning and tones and sounds from the ancient buildings are just totally amazing. So I don't know if I can say this, but I have been saying over and over again that I have developed the world's first sound therapy watch. But look at this image. These are ancient images, supposedly from the Sumerians, and almost every single one of these, you will notice how profound. There is a watch that looks just like this on their wrist, or there is a tool, whatever you might want to call it. And there's lots of conjecture and skepticism as to what these tools really were that the Sumerians were wearing. So I hope maybe something has been discovered thousands of years ago, but I'm still going to say this is the world's first sound therapy watch. I recently had the opportunity to travel to Colombia, and I took these pictures right outside my hotel, just in the room, just leaning over, and here was this fabulous church. And this was why I wanted to take this picture so bad, because again, updated information is showing us that churches actually make their own unique sound. And that when we delve deeper into this and look at a study called cymatics, which is very new, but it's been around for a while actually, but new to most of us. Cymatics is the visualization of sound. And when they visualize the sound that a church makes, it's the same look as the church windows that they have. So you can place some sand on a vibration plate and then play a tone, and that sand will form into a certain look, just like the church window. And that's what they're seeing. They have gone inside these churches and been able to kind of make the sound of the church stand out a little bit more so that they can actually physically hear the sound. And it's exactly what I was telling you. There is a vibration that looks just like the window. So cymatics is very, very important idea to us today. It's proving that there is so much more to sound that we haven't discovered. So what did the ancient cultures know? Did they use their churches for more than just going to church and for praying? Maybe there was a lot more to it, because those sounds are actually ringing throughout very, very softly, but changing and doing something in our system. So another idea that I think is so amazing that we're missing is that quantum physics is now telling us that we are 99.99% energy and 0.01% matter. But what do we look at all the time? What do we try to work with? What do we want to change in our bodies? We're always trying to change our physical bodies, the matter. And we're not paying any attention to the energy, which is mostly what we are made of. So they've been able to measure atoms and the space in between, and that's where they get the figure that we are 99.99% energy. So we've taken a wrong turn somewhere. We've forgotten that energy is a major portion of our body, and we've went the other direction, just like we've went the other directions with pills, and we need to do this and we need to do that. Something needs to be changed, and if that change working with frequencies could be made, a whole different idea would abound about working naturally to change our health. So of course, I want you to know that in the 1980s, a lot of this work was done. And again, it still hasn't reached us so that we're working with it every day in our own lives naturally. Dr. Candace Pert told us in her book, Molecules of Emotion, that basically there are 70 different receptors, and every single one of them will start to vibrate. And so when that vibration is happening, that makes the cell vibrate, and that happens faster than the speed of sound. So that vibrations go through our body, of course, very, very fast. Now, I think some of you are probably familiar with Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he's been telling us for a lot of years that information can be carried by chemistry, and it can also be carried by vibration. So when he's talking about chemistry, he's talking about our pills and our supplements and things like that go through our body. And they go through so slowly that 98% of those chemicals are actually heated and lost because of the heat from our body. But vibration, again, goes through faster than the speed of sound, and so it is 100% absorbed. So he's a big fan of working with frequencies. because they do move through our body unbelievable speed, and they are transformed quickly and used by our body. But that also gives us a clue that I should have mentioned earlier. This is why we have to take things over and over and over again, whether you're talking about a natural supplement, hopefully it's as natural as you can get it, or whether you're talking about a prescription. They are burned up in our body 98%. So only 2% is getting through our body. And that's why we have to take them all the time, over and over and over again. Where again, I know I'm repeating, but it's such an important concept that vibrations and frequencies go through and they're absorbed 100% very quickly. The Niels Bohr School of Physics in Denmark gave us information and studies at least 10 years ago, telling us that our nerves may be sound impulses, and that theory that we've learned over the years that our nerves are electrical is probably wrong. So I've told this concept to many people, and they look up the research and they're going, oh my goodness, that's really almost indisputable. But it's going to take about 50 years for people to realize that our nerves probably are not electrical. And so if our nerves are sound impulses, that's another reason why we should be harnessing sound to improve our health. And through the WaveWatch, I've seen this over and over again, that one of the best things for using the WaveWatch is for nerves. And to me, we see changes very, very quickly, which backs up these studies that our nerves could be sound impulses. So I hope you're learning this too, because it is so important for us just to get it in our mind that there's a frequency for everything. So there are frequencies, specific frequencies for our nerves, like carpal tunnel and tremors. The list goes on and on. There are books this thick that have frequencies. So start to learn that so that we can harness that idea about using frequencies for natural ideas. Now, another concept that I like to share with people is the fact that frequencies don't have to go through our ears. We don't have to hear something in order to absorb a frequency. It is absorbed through our skin, and our bones are amazing conductors of frequencies. And this was so important to me. You see, I'm a deaf person. I'm completely deaf in one ear, and I really have a hard time sometimes hearing things and understanding what someone says unless I'm, looking directly at them. So when I developed the WaveWatch, I wanted the tool to be something that everybody can use. And they can, because all you have to do is put the WaveWatch on your wrist, and those frequencies are going to be absorbed very quickly through the skin and then through the bones. And I think what's even more fun is that you could have a grandbaby or a baby sitting on your lap, and they're going to be absorbing your frequencies. And we do know that, but we don't really pay attention to it. We talk and we have, sayings about, oh, that person is a little bit, not quite my frequency, oh, we speak, we're listening, we're in the same frequency. Whatever phrase you want to use, we do know, let's repeat that frequencies can pass from one person to another, or from you to your animals. So if you've got a dog sitting on your lap and you are exuding frequencies for balancing, calmness, or maybe even if you're wearing the WaveWatch set on anxiety, your pet is going to calm down along with you. So I'm just kind of giving you a list of ideas that we've missed, that we really should have learned in, 6th and 7th grade, but they really haven't been taught to us. So here we are going back in history and going back in time, going back in our education to find out information about frequencies that should just be second nature to us. So I hope that these little tips and ideas could be helpful to you. Now, this is one of my favorite pictures because this is from Stanford Medical. And so a study was done there to show how acoustical sounds can actually manipulate heart cells. So do you remember when I was showing you a picture of a church, or you've seen church windows? If you didn't happen to see that exact one, you know that cymatics is the study of sound. So they are actually applying a different sound, different frequencies to different heart cells. And so each one of these is a different picture of how that heart cell changed with a different frequency. So they can manipulate these. So one frequency is one picture. Think how many things that our body can absorb with different sounds and actually change if we know exactly which frequencies that we want to use. So frequencies are amazing in our body. Here is the proof that you should be showing and sharing with others that frequencies can do a lot of changes in our body, and that change should always be towards improvement, rebalancing, healing, working with whatever phrasing you want to use. It's so important, again, that we know that frequencies can change our body. So every structure in our DNA has a natural resonance. Again, we've mentioned that several times. But what I haven't mentioned so far is that they know that when two objects meet with the same frequency, that they can be effectively used to destroy microbes. So all we really need to think of is the crystal goblet and the opera singer. That one sound can actually blow that goblet up. But why haven't we used that in our own natural health? Why don't we realize that we could find the frequency of a microbe or a pathogen of some kind, and then send that same frequency into our cells, and it would actually meet with the same frequency and self-amplify and fall apart, break, explode, change, rebalance, whatever word you want to say. Now, this is from Tesla. Tesla is the genius, Nikola Tesla, who told us this, and he calls it the mortal oscillation rate. So he phrased this long before we ever saw visual pictures or even thought about the crystal in the goblet. But here we are, being slow again, not really thinking this through, that we could be using this idea in many, many ways to effectively change and rebalance our body. So Tesla's ideas were picked up by Dr. Royal Raymond Rife, and he developed a microscope which we have not been able to duplicate to this day. And Dr. Rife is considered the father of frequency medicine. And he actually measured most of these frequencies that I've been talking about today. So they've been measured for over 100 years. They were used a lot on the West Coast, and he was working with medical doctors to try to prove that frequencies could be amazing in working with many different health problems. But sadly, this is a story that you're going to need to pick up your own, and I hope you're a researcher and that you want to read this a little bit. But Dr. Royal Raymond Rife got on the wrong side of the AMA, and they decided that frequencies should be illegal to use. So this is the time that we were switching from natural medicine in the 1910s, 1920s, and frequencies could have been a next easy step to use, but instead we went towards pills, which we have to take every day and can change our monetary aspect on healing ourselves and taking care of ourselves rather than using frequencies. So it's a huge story here. Again, the frequencies were banned, they were illegal. His microscope, which I told you has never been replicated today, was destroyed, and so many of his frequency measurements were also destroyed. But it's a story that we are coming back from, and we are starting to use frequencies more and more today. And you just have to look around. Now the medical community is embracing MRIs and CAT scans and ultrasounds. Those are all using frequencies of different kinds. They're not using acoustical frequencies like I'm talking about, but we are starting to pay more and more attention to the use of frequencies today. Now, I've kind of been saying this, but I think it's kind of important for us to realize that when we start to use energy, frequency, and vibration, that there are so many advantages to it that we're not even really acknowledging, but they're so much safer. There's fewer side effects. Obviously, we absorb frequencies all day long, and I'm talking about sound frequencies. Sound acoustical frequencies in the range of 20 to 20,000 are very safe with very minimal side effects. And they're easily generated, sustainable. They're not expensive to generate. You don't have to regenerate them over and over and over again, obviously. This actually would lead to simplified healthcare models. It would make it so much easier for us to be into our own self-care and not dependent on so many different trips to the doctor and waiting lines, and the type of healthcare industry that we have right now could very much be simplified. And there could be such a reduced time in pandemics, which to me is very, very important, because any new mutation, anything that changes, whatever they are saying could be a crisis, can actually easily be measured. And it really doesn't matter whether they're labeling it as a virus or a parasite or a bacteria. As long as we have the frequency, we can generate the exact frequency, a resonant frequency back for our bodies to absorb. And then if that happens to be in our body, again, those two ideas are going to meet, those two resonances are going to meet and self-amplify and fall apart. So again, that's the mortal oscillation rate. So why aren't we harnessing that? Why aren't we taking advantage of that? It's too easy, in my opinion. So let's get busy on this and start harnessing frequencies. So thank you for joining me today. I get so enthusiastic about frequencies and how they can be harnessed so simply in our lives. So I actually put together a product called the WaveWatch, and you can find it at WaveWatch.com, and you can see some of the different ideas and testimonies on that website about how you can use acoustical frequencies to change your life. Thanks for joining me, and make sure you look at our video.